Hi folks, well it's been a while since I've done anything interesting at the weekends, but the weather's starting to pick up here in the UK and the days are getting longer, and I think it's time I started getting things planted out here in the greenhouse. I had been trying to keep these strawberries going over the winter time here, but due to an RCD circuit breaker tripping out at some point in time, I'm not sure when, these plants went without water for quite a while, so a lot of them aren't looking particularly happy anymore. I tried to recover a few of them and stuck them in these flood and drain beds to give them a better supply of water and not make it quite so critical if the electrics went wrong again. And yesterday I nipped over to the garden centre and picked up 8 little strawberry elan plants just to bolster the numbers up. So I'm going to get those planted out today, but first So I've never been totally happy with these round drainage pipes as NFT pipes. In particular, I've always had lots of trouble when I transplant plants into them in the first place, because the bottom of the pot's got quite a large gap before the water, and you need the roots to dangle down and actually reach into the nutrients, otherwise the plant dries out. And the clay balls at the top here always just end up being totally dry, and it's kind of 50-50 if plants I try and transplant actually make it or not. Now, in the past, I've cut holes in the bottom of pots and things like that so that the roots can reach down, but that's a limit to the size you can do, and then you end up with a plant that's planted so deep you can't actually, there's not enough between the base of the plant and where the roots need to go, so you end up burying most of the plant in the clay pebbles. Last year before Christmas, I 3D printed these self-feeding, self-wicking pots, and I did 3 of them, and they've been absolutely fantastic, really easy to use, and superb growth rates from the plants. So I came up with the idea of making a bit of a hybrid. I've been 3D printing a whole bunch of these little net cup extenders, which are designed to go into the bottom of the net pots, and here's one I prepared earlier. So I've just cut a square out of the bottom of the pot and dropped it in there and filled it up with perlite, and that means that the water from the rail now, which this is low enough to sit in, actually gets wicked up by the perlite and keeps the inside of the net pot nice and damp. So with these pots I'm just taking out kind of the 4 squares in the middle. Just gives a nice fit on the pot there. So I need to do 8 or 10 of those. In case you're wondering why I didn't just use a little net pot in the bottom of a big net pot, the slits on these net pots aren't tight enough to stop the perlite falling through, so it all just ends up falling in the rail. See if everything goes according to plan. Hopefully it should be quite a nice fit. A little pocket of perlite in there. I think I'm going to scatter a little bit more perlite around the outside of that and then top off with pebbles. And hopefully that will transplant into the rail without stressing the plant at all. Encourage the roots to grow down and then out sideways into the nutrient solution rather than out here and into the air. So I'm going to pop that in the rail and get on with the rest of them. Okay, here's one that's been in the flood and drain beds, and you can see we've got some really healthy looking roots on that at the moment, and this is exactly the case I was trying to point out before, that if I drop these roots through the pot into the bottom, into the nutrients, those bits of roots will be fine, but all of that will die off because it gets too dry. So I'm going to try basically the same deal, but fill this up with perlite, drop the plant in at about that sort of height, and a few clay pebbles on top. Let's see how that one gets on. I'm going to put that one up. You can barely see. Sorry, bad camera angle. So that's the end of the new ones. I'm going to drop this one in, next one along. We'll see how that gets on. Alright, that's it for this time, folks. I've still got loads to do in here. I've got to get some plants on the go in the big deep water culture buckets. I haven't done anything in the other greenhouse yet, but this is my starter. I'll try and get some onions on the go fairly soon, I think. But anyway, thanks for joining me, and see you next time. Cheers!